welcome. Oh my goodness, Carol Patrizi here. We've got the beautiful Jan Hoath. I'm going to call her Jan Joyfield Hoath with us. It's hard to believe we are coming to a close of this
Mm.
year, and
Mhm.
it's time for all of us to start preparing for next year, but
Yeah.
differently than we've prepared before. Let's prepare
Amen.
so that we actually realize an incredibly successful, whatever success means to each of you, each of
Mhm.
us, whatever that means, let's get prepared so we have the most successful new year and we see it all the way through. And we remember and appreciate Jan and these incredible speakers that are giving us tools and strategies and tricks
Mm.
to really realize
Mhm.
not only what we want, but how we want to feel at the end of next year. Welcome.
Yes.
Get ready. Yay, Jan, you're here.
Oh my gosh, Carol, it's so awesome to be here, and I love that we get to talk at the end of the year as
I
a
know.
gorgeous preparation, and, like, as you were sharing for an opening, success on whatever, is defined for each person listening, and I just wanna jump in and already say, like, the thought that dropped in is, for me, success is no success at all if you don't have your joy.
Good point.
And so kinda, like, opening this conversation from that space of already that invitation of, like, what you said, hearing about how you feel in the process of whatever you're creating personally, professionally, and in all the ways and all the layers.
Isn't that the truth? Joy.
Mm.
And if you are joyful, clearly you have a sense of peace.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
so thank you for that. And you being such a creator, such a beautiful representation of a person who lives a joy-filled life.
Mm.
I can hardly wait to get a few tips from you on how we are going to hold on to joy and create some joy if someone listening is not experiencing that right now.
Mhm.
How in the world do we create? How do we implement joy into the plan? Give us some tips, Jan.
Absolutely. And my first tip here today is what I call the and.
The
It's
end.
having joy and whatever is going on.
Oh, yeah.
And appreciating that we're all on this beautiful roller coaster ride of life. Some of us are on a bigger ride, and some of us are kind of hanging out a little bit more on the kiddie ride, and no judgment and no problem, whatever ride you choose at whatever time. And yet the invitation already that I have for everyone is to appreciate there is an and it's
Mhm.
not an or. And so much. And I even know for myself personally, and I have clients that we get into this a lot, that there's an either or mentality.
Mhm.
And it actually comes down to the belief that you choose to hold.
Oh, yeah.
And so just thinking about one of my clients who was in this process of retiring and couldn't see the ant. And she had sacrificed so much of her joy for so much of her career because she thought that's what she had to do. She didn't realize she could have career, success, and joy.
Mhm.
And now, even though it's the end of her career journey, I've supported her in a transition of the with the and in fact, it's the and of the joy of appreciating you can have the joy even in spite of funkiness, challenging relationships as you're exiting, you know, um, different mentalities and approaches. Because some of the people that she's surrounded by don't necessarily agree with how she's been going around or about things. And
Mm.
yet I supported her in coming home to her joy, in finding the and of being true to herself and honoring the others in the company that she was exiting and her personal life.
Mm,
And in the process, she's had moments where she gets on a call with me and she's saying, "My husband's thanking you, my kids are thanking you because they see me in my joy."
yeah.
And this is where already like tip number 1 for today and our listeners is look for the and, believe, be willing, be even audacious to believe that there is an and here, that you don't have to sacrifice things that you care about. Yeah, sure,
Mhm.
sometimes we have to prioritize. We don't, I guess you can jump with both feet, but usually we go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And yet, already, as you're thinking about finishing out this year, as you're thinking about starting the next year, inviting a perspective of and my
Mm,
joy and this thing that matters to me.
mm. That's huge
Mm.
because there's such a difference between happiness and joy.
That too.
You know, and
Yes.
I do think, regardless of what's going on, like you said, in spite of, let's say it's a very lots of turmoil, sadness, whatever's going on,
Mm,
you're able to have a joy because that's a centering.
yes, it's a state of being versus I define happiness as a fleeting emotion.
Yes. And I love that so much. And I bet
Mm,
that your client's family is tell her tell her thank you. Because so many people they go to their jobs
mhm,
and they're not having fun at their jobs.
mhm,
They are there till it's time to get off and then they leave and they leave with a heaviness
mm,
rather than a joy
mhm.
build up, have joy there and even be more joyful rather than no joy. I love this so much. What
Yeah,
how do you work with people to have them find and grasp their joy? Because it is there. We all have a joy within.
absolutely. And there are kind of two parts to this question that it's a muscle to be built over time, to be honest. And yet there's also ways to look for what I call the little joys or the Fruit Loop moment, as I define it, which is a very brief backstory of an experience that I had where we had a cancer scare with my son when he was 6 weeks old. And this is where there was an and. I was in the hospital with him and I was the breastfeeding mom and I needed to eat and it might be cancer, you might die. And there's this heaviness, like what you were just talking about. And I saw that I could order off the menu and I saw Fruit Loops as an option. And it was like, oh, I can't do that. And this is my invitation, everyone, as they're leaning in and thinking about what this might mean to them. You, it's unexpected. It's logically doesn't make sense. It's something that it's like, "Oh, I can't do that." There's even like an audacity there. And yet in this situation for me, it was like, "Yes, I can." And this voice came over me saying, "You don't need nourishment for your body," because that was the thing, like Fruit Loops are not a healthy cereal. And yet nourishment for my joy, for my soul. And that's where I now call this the Fruit Loop moment because I had the Fruit Loops. I enjoyed the Fruit Loops, and for those few minutes, there was this little moment of joy amidst this very
Mm,
heart-wrenching time of my life and our lives with my family, and yet even my son was giggling from the crib at the time.
wow.
And while I didn't have Fruit Loops every day, for those 12 days, though, I looked for the little joys or what I now call the Fruit Loop moments because they lifted the spirits. And that's why we care about joy in that state of being. Because for you, what it is it's coming into a consciousness where you're more available to opportunities and ideas and creativity and imagination and optimistic. Yeah. Like hope. Yes. And so my invitation for everyone listening is to believe in Fruit Loop moments, to honor them, because after 12 days, we came away unscathed. In fact, his diagnosis was a medical mystery, a medical miracle off the record. And now he's a thriving, almost 13-year-old boy, and he's awesome, and he's healthy, and he's amazing. And so, this invitation for you listening is that joy is really a superpower because it's getting you into a state of consciousness where you can be with that and of heaviness, challenges. And I think about the holidays, and that can be such a hard time for so many people. Like holiday
Mhm,
depression is massive,
mhm,
and even I know you have statistics for New Year's resolutions. Like people start off really great, and like by mid-January, like
mhm,
there's a slump again.
mhm.
And so understanding that you can look for the little joys and still feel sadness that
Right.
that loved one who passed away this time last year, or the job that went away, or whatever, what I call uh the major life circumstances
Mhm,
that arrive for us. It's
mhm,
happening for you. I know that's a really challenging thought, and it's really helpful to have a mentor to support you through that. And yet, to use your word, which I so love, holding yourself accountable and having support to be accountable to your joy, because whose joy is it?
mhm.
Your joy. Not
That's
my
right.
joy, it's your joy. When you
That's right.
hold yourself accountable to it and just start by looking for the little joys, you actually build a joy muscle. And there's fantastic science now that proves it, that you literally build new neurological pathways, that when you look for the good and if you look for the joy, it gets easier. And that's why I say it's a muscle. And that's
Mhm.
why, I'm an advocate of coaching and mentorship and circles where you have support for accountability and building that joy muscle so that you create more joyful outcomes no matter how challenging things may get.
I love that you search for that and you say that it becomes easier, and it's
Mhm,
because it becomes more automatic.
mhm. Yes.
Anytime you practice something enough, I'm going to call those moments Fruit Loop moments
Mhm.
from now on. Thank you for that. Okay. So tell us, myself and the audience. Oh, look, that is so wonderful. If you're just listening and you cannot see the lovely Jan, she just held up a little kid-sized box of Fruit Loops. What a fabulous reminder. I should get one. We should all get them. And remember that Jan told us to do this. Speaking of joy, as we're coming to the end of this year, and as you mentioned earlier, the holidays can be tough for a lot of
Mhm,
people.
mm.
And of course, there are the obvious things that, in any when there are 2 or more people, there's some dysfunction there. There's that group of things that,
Yeah.
can build up and,
Mm.
take some dealing with. But what about coming to the end of a year
Mhm,
and even bringing up thinking about next year
mhm,
reminds us maybe what we did not accomplish
mhm,
this past year.
mhm.
And so that's not a great feeling.
Mm-mm.
However, I guess if we take into accountability,
Mhm,
instead of beating ourselves up over that, saying, okay, good news is New Year's coming and this is where I am. And coming and listening to you and these wonderful speakers, it's like, what can I do differently to have a different outcome at the end of next year
mhm,
and keep joy with me along the way?
mhm.
What can you speak to that and share with the audience some tips to deal with it's okay and be
Mhm.
joyful? You must have had some fun this year. Something went on if you didn't accomplish those goals. What would you say to all of us as listeners?
And I appreciate having the opportunity to share about this. This is something that comes up in probably every meditation that I lead, and every time I get on. a call with my clients, whether it's a private client or it's a group client in my Atomic Joy program. And I do a 3 breath series.
Mm.
And I start with a breath to bless the past and to acknowledge the past. And it starts with a breath, and then it also starts with, you listening, you can take this some time to journal and reflect in this way. And yet blessing the past to stay in the past, and only the lessons and the blessings get to stay here with you now.
Mhm. Bless, release, and hang on to the
Right.
lessons. The
Yes.
lessons.
And the blessings in disguise, because that's the thing. Like, gosh, I was just with my group today talking to them about the fact that it's that hindsight is 2020 piece, that
Sure.
when we think, oh, I failed and I didn't do this or whatever, that goal I didn't achieve. And then, 10 years down the road, or maybe even one, you can look back and go, wow, I'm thankful it didn't work out. That thing that I was pushing for, striving for. And that's where, like, so much of my work is also rooted in mindfulness. And like you said, a very peaceful joy, because it's, that's the space you can really create from sustainable, successful outcomes, is to be in that place of getting to resolution. And I think everyone needs that experience for themselves as you go into the new year. I think it's interesting, New Year's resolutions. I think it's important to take some time to have previous year reflections.
Yes.
And then the other piece that I do, because I was telling you it's a 3 breath sequence, I want to invite everyone into that next space, is you bless the future to stay out there in the future until the perfect time to unfold into the now.
Mhm.
And appreciate that in this now moment, and that's the 3rd breath, how you show up, how you look, how you embrace, how you celebrate the lessons, how you celebrate the blessings, and how you lovingly, with deep compassion and kindness, let go of that beating up, of that need to be hard on oneself. That when you show up in that space and you choose joy, you look for the little joys, you show up with what you got, then that future trajectory gets to shift into something
Mhm.
better.
Mm. I love that, and that sounds like a very nice, simple, which I know the audience, everyone loves simplicity,
Mm,
and that's a simple, it doesn't take a long time, and what a beautiful way to center as we are planning
mhm,
for what we'd like next year to look like,
mm,
how we'd like to feel at the end of the year. What a
mhm,
nice way to begin that. What a beautiful form of prayer. If we could hang on to the value of when things don't work out
mhm.
and hang on to the value of those lessons, and like you said, just hang on to the lessons so that you move forward with a little more wisdom.
Absolutely. And that's where it's not for naught. Like, it's not a wasted experience.
Right.
And I know you're a faith woman too, that I believe if we don't take the wisdom, it's
That's
gonna
right.
come around again. And I
Right.
know for me, I'd like to learn the lesson as soon as possible and get on to more of the good stuff.
Exactly. Okay, so let's just well, I'll use myself as an example. It is very easy to say, okay, I'm thrilled. I'm gonna always be looking for the Fruit Loop moments and
Mhm,
all that. And however, how is this? Do we need a daily practice? Is this a step by step practice? What do we need to do to get to, let's just say, to get to the end of the first quarter? You
mhm,
know, the statistics, the reason we are doing this is
mm,
number one is to remind everyone everybody experiences not
mhm,
reaching a goal, not having completed something, maybe not hitting a number. These are very shared experiences.
Yeah.
Life gets in the way, whatever it is that has gotten in our way before. How do we
Mhm.
then but stay with it? How do
Mhm.
we get there? How do we do that?
Well, I mean, my biggest loving encouragement to absolutely everyone is it is a daily practice,
Mm,
and it's a daily invitation, it's a daily choice.
mm,
And on top of that, I would wholeheartedly invite you listening to make sure you're tapped into a community of others that are in practice. And
mhm,
again, it doesn't matter, come play with me with joy and atomic joy, come play with you with accountability and success, or any of the other amazing speakers, whatever flavor it is, but it's
mhm.
it's tapping into a space where others are also engaging as well, and that there is some expert guidance, wise guidance, and human guidance, because I know I'm not like
Uh,
perfect here, and yet there is truth in the matter of gathering in community, having that upliftment support, knowing that others you can lock arms with and move through together and stay committed and recommit, because we're going to fall off the path. You all do. We all do
that's
fall
right.
off the path of commitment and devotion, and then it's just getting back in that game, and it's that practice, daily practice, and that's where like atomic joy includes daily joy habits. And yet it's also just being so available to locking arms with others, to enjoy the journey of it, and recommitting on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And then even finding the joy in the breakdown.
The
There's a
joy of the
wonderful song like Beauty in the
breakdown.
Breakdown. Yeah.
I hope you write that book, The Joy in the Breakdown. I'm gonna remind you of that. It's so interesting, and I know a lot of the audience will agree, is that this sounds great. Okay, we're gonna tap in, we're gonna be in a community. I believe the difference in those that realize what they consider success are those that are willing to do the work,
Mhm.
because even deciding upon a community,
Yes.
deciding upon a habit,
Mhm.
you know, are we saying we're going to give these resolution and these goals a try, or are we actually committing? And
And
your let's just use, I mean, I know the audience appreciates you have given a 3 breath invaluable practice
mm,
to set up for and to practice each and every day.
mhm,
If each of us, audience, let's face it, if each of us would do that every day,
mhm.
we're recentering,
Yes.
getting in on joy. And I hope that we're all planning for the new year at the end to feel joy.
Mhm,
And maybe we feel joy because, shoot, we didn't do this beautiful practice that Jan is sharing. We didn't do it every day, but my
mm,
goodness, we did it 3 days a week one week, and next week we did it 5 days a week.
mhm.
Progress, not perfection,
Yes.
and one day at a time. I could not agree with you more, Jan. I do believe it is a daily choice.
A
And I think
daily.
the minute we say tomorrow, we need to say, that means I think tomorrow's coming around without its own problems. I think maybe I'll just do those 3 breaths today.
Yes. And in this moment,
And
like,
in
and then now, because, right, all we have is now, really.
it's the truth.
Tomorrow is in human language and construct.
Ah, my
Like,
favorite.
what we have is this now moment, and then that's really what we have. So recommitting in this now to your joy, and recommitting to the things that matter to you, and from there taking that action of progress
Ah,
is,
invaluable.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I wish we had more time. I
Mm.
know the audience has questions, and if y'all will, I'll tell you what, you will have all of Jan's contact information. Go to her website. I mean, she has so much to share. I cannot
Mm.
encourage you enough to follow up with Jan. She is, you can unlock beautiful gifts with Jan. If you
Mhm.
follow the podcast, I love that she put a little twist on that. And I just, Jan, what are final thoughts, words of wisdom for success, whatever that means to each of the listeners in the
Mhm.
next
Ah, final words are to really know that you deserve to be in your joy, that
year?
joy is a birthright. There is nothing you needed to do to earn it. And because you can now know and stand in that, to truly embrace that gift every day in whatever capacity you may.
Mm. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I know the
Thank
audience says
you.
thank you. And
Thank you, everyone listening. It's my pleasure to be with you, Carol, always, and you beautiful listeners.
I can't wait till our next conversation.
Me too.
And okay, everybody, get in touch with Jan, follow. And in the meantime, soon as we close out here, why don't you take those 3 breaths?